I was just a lowly trainee in their eyes. My captain mocked me, my teammates laughed, even my own father doubted me. I said nothing. But minutes later, I broke the longest-standing sniper record. Then they saw the tattoo on my arm and everything changed. Shock, silence, and pure shame. It was a moment no one would forget. Hey everyone, you won't believe what happened to me at the training range. The moment that changed everything, the one my father never expected. Stick with me, because this story gets intense. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. People claim the past stays where you left it. Mine didn't. Mine trailed behind me with the persistence of sand stuck in your boots after a long patrol. You think you shook it off, but it grinds into every step anyway. My name's Jordan Hale, Staff Sergeant. 15 years in Special Operations. I've patched myself together in places civilians don't even know exist, but none of it compared to the quiet war I'd been fighting long before I ever held a rifle. The morning everything shifted started with a Wyoming sunrise sharp enough to feel like a blade sliding across my cheek. Frost curled off the gravel each time someone stepped. The air tasted like cold metal. Ridgepoint Range looked peaceful, but there was an old heaviness in the air, the kind of heaviness I recognized in myself. Marines were already gathered behind the firing line, pretending not to stare but absolutely staring. One whispered, "Army girls gonna choke." Another muttered something about tourists. Their voices rolled through the cold like gnats. I let them buzz. Silence can bite harder than any comeback. Then those familiar footsteps, the slow, heavy, unhurried ones, hit the ground behind me. I didn't need to look. My skin knew before my brain did. My father. Retired Master Gunnery Sergeant Clark Hale. The man whose voice could rattle steel lockers and whose silence once hollowed out a kid who couldn't understand what she'd done wrong. He walked close enough for me to catch the faint smell of the cologne he'd worn since I was 10. Old Spice and brass polish. A scent that once meant safety, until the night everything between us snapped like a trigger spring. I felt my breath hitch for the smallest second when I heard how steady his breathing was, composed, unreadable, professional, or maybe pretending to be. He didn't look at me, not a nod, not a flicker, just walked past like I wasn't his daughter, or maybe like acknowledging me in front of Marines cost him something he couldn't afford. A Marine instructor called out, "Hale, Lane 7, let's see what the Army's got." Someone snickered behind me. My throat tightened, then steadied. My pulse didn't waver. Training and pain make decent business partners. When I stepped onto Lane 7, a familiar unease fluttered through me, a tiny echo of that night years ago when my father told me, without raising his voice, that I didn't have what it takes. I swallowed it. Ghosts don't get to vote on my aim. I dropped into position. The wind shifted left to right in sneaky little jerks. Perfect. Difficult enough to expose every weakness, but I felt calm roll through me, the kind that settles deep, like warm sand after sunset. First shot. Direct hit. Second. Third. Fourth. The murmurs behind me shifted tone, that soft shock, that "oh hell she's not missing" sound. My father stayed absolutely still. Too still. I couldn't tell if it was discipline or discomfort, and that not knowing scraped at me more than the cold wind. When I sent the final round downrange, so far the target shimmered like a mirage. The range officer just stared at the screen. "You broke a 23-year Marine record." A ripple of "no way" and "holy crap" spread behind me. My father, nothing. His silence hit harder than recoil. I almost turned. Almost. But almost is where old wounds live, and I wasn't giving them oxygen. I stepped back from the line feeling the ground shift, not from pride, but from the sense that something buried for years had just cracked open. I thought breaking that record would finally close the distance between me and my father. Instead, it exposed the first loose thread in a lie big enough to take down everything he built, and force me to decide how far truth is worth going. I barely slept the night after breaking that record. You'd think I'd be floating, grinning, throwing a quiet little victory party in my own head. Instead, I lay in the dim barracks room staring at the ceiling like it held answers. My hands kept remembering the rifle. My chest kept remembering my father's silence. Every time I shut my eyes, that old scent of his cologne drifted back, curling around my ribs like a memory that refused to stay folded. By morning, the Wyoming cold was clawing at the windows. I walked into the admin office to sign the routine forms they make you fill out after a joint range competition. Boring stuff, ammo usage, safety confirmations, travel logs, the kind of paperwork that puts even caffeine to sleep. But one file was missing, the most important one. My sniper recertification sheet. Without that, my shots didn't officially count. I needed it for my annual record, for promotions, for everything. I told the clerk behind the desk, a kid barely old enough to rent a car, "My packet's incomplete. Where's my recert?" He blinked at me like I was speaking Swahili. Sergeant Hale, your recert came in yesterday. It's already filed." That made no sense. Filed where? He turned the monitor so I could see. And there it was, my name, my ID number, stamped failed. My throat went dry. The kind of dry you feel before bad news hits. I said, "That's impossible. I just broke your Marine record yesterday." He swallowed hard. It says you didn't qualify, says you never completed the eval." My stomach dropped. That was no clerical error. Someone had replaced my real file with a forged one, and whoever did it knew exactly what they were doing. My father's breathing from yesterday echoed in my head, steady, controlled, cold. A slow, uneasy laugh slipped out of me, not the funny kind, the kind that happens right before a storm. I leaned closer. "Pull the digital trail." He hesitated but did it. The keystrokes clattered like teeth chattering. The metadata popped up on the screen, and my eyes locked onto the username that updated my file. See Hale admin. My father. A cold, pins and needles heat crawled across my shoulders. For a second, I genuinely couldn't breathe. Felt like someone had punched me in the sternum. I whispered, more to myself than the clerk, "Why would he do this?" The kid looked terrified. "Ma'am, please don't get me in trouble." I waved him off. I was already spiraling into a place I didn't want to revisit. A place filled with memories of him saying, "You think pain builds character. I think you ask for it." I pulled up the audit logs myself. Years of experience made my fingers faster than his. What I saw chilled me deeper than the Wyoming wind. My father had been altering sniper certifications for months. Names I didn't recognize. Soldiers who supposedly passed advanced marksmanship without ever stepping foot on the range. Worse, some of the altered files belonged to Marines stationed overseas. That meant real-world missions, real danger. And then the breadcrumb that cracked everything open. One entry marked restricted. One I shouldn't have been able to access. But the system glitched for half a second, just long enough for me to see a fragment of a name before it disappeared. J. Hale. My brother. My knees damn near buckled. A wave of nausea hit me so hard I had to grip the desk. My father wasn't just altering records, he was protecting someone. Or burying them. The clerk whispered, "Sergeant, are you okay?" A shaky sigh escaped me, not even close. Because suddenly, this wasn't about a stolen record, or pride, or my father ignoring me on the range. This was about a secret big enough to sink careers, reputations, maybe even lives. And somehow, I was at the center of it. Before sunset, I'd learn the truth behind that restricted file and discover the one thing my father feared more than my success, me finding out what he did to keep my brother's name clean. I could feel the cold creeping up my spine as I stepped back into the barracks after the record-breaking shot. Everyone else was buzzing, patting each other on the back, selfies and videos already circulating. Me? I just stared at the wall, letting the adrenaline settle like mud in a river. The echo of the sniper's round was still ringing in my head, and somewhere behind it, the ghost of my father's silence. Connor, my teammate and unofficial partner in chaos, nudged me. "You crushed it, Delaney. No one's touching that score for another decade." He grinned, eyes sparkling like he'd just seen a damn miracle. I let out a small laugh, but it felt hollow, like laughing through a mask. Connor didn't notice, or maybe he didn't care, but I felt the emptiness of the acknowledgement I actually craved. Then I saw him, my father. Not moving, not looking at anyone, just standing in the corner like a shadow. He smelled the same aftershave mixed with the faint coppery tang of gun oil. That smell used to mean protection, discipline, and late-night drills in our backyard. Now it hit me like a punch, a reminder that he had never really seen me, not fully. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, a drumbeat that threatened to drown out everything else. I wanted to yell, to throw something, to demand some recognition, but instead, silence. My own silence. I realized then how much I'd learned from him, even the cruel parts. Silence has teeth, and I'd sharpened mine. The day had already been long, but the real work was just starting. A notice hit my inbox. An internal audit flagged some irregularities in the sniper certification logs. My father's old unit. I froze, reading the first line. Forged entries, favoritism. Names of people I'd trained with, respected, maybe even trusted. My stomach twisted. The truth was a venomous snake coiled right under my boots. Connor noticed my sudden change in expression. "Delaney, you good?" I shook my head. Not really. That night, lying in the cot that had felt like home for years, I couldn't sleep. Images of the barracks, the record, my father's shadow, the audit, every piece collided like artillery. Somewhere between rage and nausea, I realized I was at a crossroads. Expose it all, destroy his legacy, or let it slide and keep peace. I ran my fingers over the Delta sniper insignia tattoo on my wrist. A small smile, bitter and tired. It had taken years to earn that, and it wasn't given. It was taken. Every shot I'd fired, every drill, every night spent shivering in the mountains, it had all built to this moment. Now, that same discipline would be tested in a battlefield I hadn't trained for, the corridors of lies and betrayal. A soft sigh escaped me. The ghosts of my childhood weren't going anywhere. But maybe, just maybe, I could learn to lead them, not be led by them. And then my phone buzzed. One message, just one. From someone I hadn't expected. "Meet me at Fort Dalton, midnight, come alone." I stared at the screen, pulse thundering. My life had already been a series of calculated risks, but this was different. Some risks are worth everything. Some risks might cost you everything. And I had a feeling this one would do both. Midnight, alone. The truth waits at Fort Dalton, but so does a storm I've never faced. The drive to Fort Dalton felt endless. Midnight had a way of making the world feel too quiet and too loud at the same time. Headlights cut through fog like knives, and every shadow on the road looked like it had teeth. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white, every mile feeling heavier than the last. I kept thinking about the message. "Come alone." Whoever had sent it knew something I didn't. Could it be a warning or a trap? My gut screamed caution, but curiosity, hell, curiosity was worse than fear. It had always been. Pulling up to the old gate, I noticed the lights were dim, the watchtower abandoned. The place smelled like gunpowder and old sweat, like ghosts of training past. I slipped out of the car, rifle strapped to my back more for reassurance than defense. The concrete crunched under my boots. Every sound exaggerated. A bat screeched somewhere above, and I jumped. Classic me, jumping at bats at 2 a.m., adrenaline still soaked into my bones. I reached the main hall, heart hammering, and froze. Papers scattered across the floor, chairs overturned. Someone had been here just hours or minutes before me. My breath hitched. Whoever it was, they were fast. Smart, dangerous. A voice broke the silence, low, calm. "Delaney." I spun, rifle raised. There, leaning against the wall, was Lieutenant Harris, a man I trusted but had never really known. His expression was unreadable, almost haunted. "You got the message," he said. No smirk, no fake heroics, just gravity. "What's going on?" I whispered, tension coiling in my chest. He shook his head. "It's worse than you think. The forged certifications, the favoritism, it's not just your father. It's a network. People in power. People who have covered their tracks for decades. And they know you're onto them." I felt the floor shift beneath me. I'd known corruption ran deep, but this was a wildfire. I swallowed hard. "And you're telling me because..." Harris stepped closer, voice dropping. "Because you're the only one who can stop it. And if you don't, they'll bury everyone who tries." A chill ran down my spine. I laughed bitterly. a sound more like breaking glass than amusement. Great! So I'm supposed to be a one-woman army against a secret army of liars and thieves. He nodded, pretty much. And they've already started watching you. I felt anger bubble up, sharp and hot. The same anger I'd trained to control on the range, the same one that had sharpened my aim, now threatening to combust. Then we don't have time to play nice, I said. Harris smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. Good, you'll need that fire, but be careful. One wrong move. He didn't finish the sentence. I didn't need him to. Outside, a faint siren wavered, distant but deliberate. My pulse spiked. Someone had been alerted. The network knew I was here. I pressed a hand against the wall, steadying myself. I could do this. I had to do this. But the question that gnawed at me was worse than fear. Could I take down the people I once respected, even my father, without losing myself? A sigh slipped past my lips. Midnight had never felt so heavy. But one thing was clear. The hunt had begun, and there was no turning back. They're watching. My father's shadow stretches farther than I imagined, and tonight, I step into the fire alone. The moment I stepped into the dimly lit archive room at Fort Dalton, I knew something was off. Dust hung in the air, the smell of old paper and mildew thick enough to choke on. My boots echoed against the concrete floor, a slow drumbeat that made every nerve in my body scream. Harris was already there, crouched over a stack of files, his flashlight cutting through the shadows. "Delaney, look at this," he murmured. I crouched beside him, heart hammering. The first folder I flipped open made me freeze. Photos, signatures, dates, everything lined up almost perfectly. Except one thing, my father's signature on multiple certification forms wasn't his. It was forged. Sharp, deliberate, calculated. I let out a bitter laugh, the kind that makes your chest ache. He can't, this is insane. Harris shook his head. "It's not just him, look at this." He slid another folder across the metal table. Names I trusted, mentors, instructors, people I'd admired, had all been part of this network, manipulating assignments, covering mistakes, ensuring their favorites rose while everyone else stayed buried. Anger flared like gasoline. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. All those nights of cold, of proving myself, of breaking my back in training, and these people were still playing the same game my father had started decades ago. "Why?" I whispered, almost to myself. "Why would anyone betray this many people for what?" Harris's expression was grim. "Power, legacy, fear. They've been running the show quietly, and now you're poking at their threads. They won't let it go quietly." I felt a cold twist in my gut. If this got out, people would die. And maybe I'd lose more than just pride. Maybe I'd lose my soul. But then something clicked. The first betrayal wasn't just a shock, it was a map. Every forged file, every manipulated certification, they left traces. And I knew enough to follow them, step by step. And if I played this right, I could unravel everything. I ran a hand over the Delta sniper tattoo on my wrist, grounding myself. This wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about justice. It was about righting something broken, even if it meant breaking myself in the process. Then a sound, a soft click behind me. My body froze, every instinct screaming. I turned slowly, and my heart stopped. One of the auditors I had trained with, someone I considered almost family, was there, hands raised, fake smile plastered on. "Delaney," they said, voice dripping sweet venom. "Did you really think you'd be the only one who found out?" I swallowed hard. A laugh escaped me, short, bitter, full of disbelief. "So, it's true, all of it." They nodded, eyes gleaming in the flashlight's harsh beam. "Everything you thought was safe, gone. And now you're part of it, whether you like it or not." The weight hit me like a hammer. This wasn't just corruption. This was personal, and it had already started to close in. I backed toward the door, heart racing, mind spinning. The first betrayal wasn't the end, it was the beginning. And if I wasn't careful, I wouldn't make it out alive. The network isn't just lying, it's watching. And now they know I'm awake. The moment I left the archive room, the cold night air hit me like a slap. My chest was tight, lungs burning, and every step toward my car felt like running through quicksand. The betrayal, the fact that someone I trusted had been part of the network, wasn't just a shock. It was a knife twisting in me. I pulled my phone out, hands shaking. One message: "Meet your father now." No location, no time, just that. I froze, my pulse thundered in my ears. Was this a trap, or worse, a test? My dad had always been a storm I couldn't predict, a living rulebook of discipline and fear. And now he was in the middle of this mess. And somehow he was calling me in. By the time I got to the old training grounds, the fog had thickened, swallowing everything. The metal targets from my sniper days glinted faintly in the moonlight. And there, leaning against one of the concrete barriers, was him, my father. He didn't look like the commanding, rigid man I remembered. No crisp uniform, no perfect posture. Just tired eyes, shadows of regret etched into his face. I could see a man I almost didn't recognize. And yet, the tension between us was a live wire. "You came," he said, voice low. No anger, no warmth, just weight. I swallowed, feeling anger rise like lava. Why now? He sighed, almost like the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. "Because you're going to find the truth, whether I help or not, and you need to know what's really at stake." I stepped closer, rifle still strapped but useless against the storm brewing in words. "You've lied for decades, hurt people I trusted, people I trained with. Why should I listen to you?" He looked away, staring at the distant range lights. "Because the network, it's bigger than me, bigger than all of us. And if you don't understand the rules, you'll get yourself killed before you even start." A bitter laugh escaped me, sharp and dry. "Rules? You mean excuses for corruption. You mean covering up your own mess while the world spins." He flinched almost imperceptibly. Maybe he knew I was right. "I did what I thought was necessary," he said quietly. "But now it's out of control. You can't go in blind." I clenched my fists. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about survival. "Then tell me what I need to know. Every file, every name, every lie. No secrets." His eyes met mine, and for a split second I saw something I hadn't in years. Vulnerability, maybe even pride twisted with regret. "Fine, but remember, once you start, there's no turning back. People will come after you, and me." A cold wind swept across the range. My heartbeat matched its rhythm, sharp, relentless. I took a deep breath, letting it settle. "I've never turned back before," I said. He gave a curt nod. "Good, then let's get to work." And as we walked back toward the archive, shoulder to shoulder in uneasy alliance, I realized one thing. The fire in the shadows wasn't just the network. It was me, fueled by betrayal, discipline, and a long overdue reckoning. The first truths are out, but the real danger is just waking up, and my father and I may not survive what's coming next. The morning fog hadn't lifted when we returned to the old archive wing. My father walked ahead, methodical, calm, like the storms of my childhood had taught me. But inside, my nerves were a live wire. Every creak of the floor, every whisper of wind through the broken windows felt like a warning. Harris had tipped me off last night about someone inside the network who was more dangerous than any outsider. A mole. A traitor I'd trusted implicitly. And now, I was about to meet them face to face. I sifted through files, checking, rechecking, memorizing names. Then I noticed it, a familiar handwriting, a note tucked between certification forms. My stomach dropped. My own team. Someone I had trained, someone I had laughed with during long nights in the barracks, had been feeding information to the network all along. A sharp laugh, bitter and dry, escaped me. "You've got to be kidding me." My father's eyes narrowed. "Not kidding. You know how dangerous they are." I gritted my teeth, vision blurred with rage and betrayal. I trusted them. I trained them. We laughed over coffee, shared stories, and they were stabbing me in the back. A sound behind me, a footstep, deliberate, slow. My hand shot to my rifle, but it wasn't just any step. It was someone I should have known. Lauren, my closest teammate, my partner in countless drills, my sister in arms. She stepped out of the shadows, a smug smile on her face. "Delaney," she said, voice silky. I knew you'd find out eventually. I laughed, sharp and painful. You're a traitor. All those missions, all that trust, for what? Money, power, just to ruin people. Her smile didn't falter. Power, Delaney, and survival, you don't understand yet. The network doesn't forgive weakness. You're either in or you're dead. I chose to live. I could feel bile rise in my throat. I wanted to scream, to strike, to shake the truth out of her, but discipline kept my body in check. I let my eyes narrow, calculating, every muscle taut. Then I guess I'll just have to stop you before you take anyone else down with you. Her eyes flickered with a hint of fear, or was that respect? And she lunged for the door, but I was faster. My rifle raised, calm hands steady, training kicking in like it always did. Stop. She froze, and in that heartbeat, I saw everything: betrayal, greed, regret, and fear. All of it laid bare. Delaney, you don't understand, she hissed. I shook my head. I understand more than you think, and if you move, you die. Her face twisted, a fleeting expression of desperation. Then she bolted. I fired a warning shot into the floor. The sound echoed, bouncing off walls and shadows, a thunderclap in the quiet. She hesitated, and I grabbed her arm, yanking her back. You made your choice, I said, voice cold, measured. Now live with it. And in that instant, I realized the cost of justice. It wasn't just paperwork, investigations, or exposing corruption. It was people I loved, trust shattered, lives broken. But it had to be done. For them, for me, for everyone who deserved better. The first betrayal has been revealed, but Lauren was just the start. Someone bigger is pulling the strings, and tonight, the shadows come alive. By the time night fell, the Fort Dalton compound felt like a cage. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound a warning. The betrayal from Lauren had been the first bite, but I knew it was just a warning shot. Someone bigger, someone who had orchestrated everything, was still out there. I met my father in the old training hall, the place where I had spent countless nights perfecting my aim, breathing, and patience. His eyes were harder now, but there was something else: fear, maybe even regret. They know you're close, he said, voice low, almost a whisper. The real mastermind is someone you never expected. I froze. My mind ran through every name, every face, every file. Who could it be? Someone inside the command structure, someone I had overlooked, someone with everything to lose. Then a sharp metallic click echoed through the hall. My instincts screamed. I ducked behind a steel table as a figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, imposing, with eyes that didn't just see, you felt them in your chest. Commanding, merciless. Delaney, the voice cut through the darkness like a blade. So nice of you to join us. I peeked around the table. It was Major Stratton, my father's superior and the very person I had trusted to uphold the integrity of the training programs. His smile was calm, almost casual, but his presence radiated pure danger. You, I whispered under my breath, disbelief twisting my gut. He chuckled, a low, chilling sound. You always were sharp, but sharpness can only get you so far. The network has rules and consequences. I swallowed, feeling the weight of betrayal crash over me. All the forged certifications, favoritism, and hidden alliances, every thread led here. He was the spider at the center of the web. You've crossed a line, I said, voice steadier than I felt, and I'm not afraid. He tilted his head, almost amused. You should be, because by the time this night ends, you won't just be fighting me, you'll be fighting the system I built. And your father, he's just collateral. I clenched my fists, breathing slow, controlled, the same way I had trained for years. Rage burned in me, but it was tempered by focus. Then I guess it's time I fire my first shot. And in that moment, everything snapped. The tension, the fear, the anger. Every betrayal, every lie, every sleepless night came together, sharpening me into a weapon. I wasn't just fighting a man anymore. I was fighting a legacy of corruption, a shadow that had haunted my family and my career for decades. The first shot rang out, echoing through the hall like thunder. Stratton's eyes widened, and in that instant I knew the game had changed. No more hiding, no more compromise. And as I leveled my rifle, I felt the culmination of everything. The silence, the discipline, the betrayal, the rage coalesce into one singular focus: justice, no matter the cost. The mastermind is exposed, but taking him down will ignite a storm that could consume everything, including the only family I have left. Tonight, nothing stays hidden, and nothing will be the same. And just when you think the worst is over, the secrets they've been hiding are about to explode. I'm only getting started, and the next chapter will shock you even more. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join me as the story unfolds.